Hey, welcome to Live America podcast. This is Hatem alongside me, the one and only Noam Dorman, owner of the Comedy Cellar.
Hello.
Hello. Very special guest tonight. We had him before, the one and only Mark Levine. Mark was elected in 2022 the Manhattan Borough president, and he's been doing a lot of good for the city. And we are here to interview him about everything Manhattan.
And he's running for comptroller.
Yes, that was the tease. I was gonna
Okay.
welcome.
Hatham, thank you, Noam. It's great to be here. I'm ready
Very
for
nice.
some good jokes. You guys make me laugh.
Now I didn't meet you in person. We met you on Zoom the last time, right?
No, it
Maybe,
was in
but I've
person.
been here.
It was in
I've been
person?
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see it was unforgettable for you. That's
No,
great.
it all blends together.
It was in person. I can't believe it's been almost how many years now? 2.5.
I think I was already borough president at that point.
Yeah.
It's been a very
No,
busy-
you were running. I remember you were running. But you've done a lot. What would you say the top 3 things you've done so far?
I am all in on the fight for affordable housing
Okay.
because the rents in Manhattan are out of control, averaging over $5,000 per month.
No, do you want to make them affordable by limiting the rents or by building more
We need to build
apartments?
more housing.
Build more housing.
We need to build more housing. We need to build more affordable housing. We can do that too. And I'm pushing very, very hard in Manhattan to do that. But we're behind. And what this means is that a maintenance worker, a bus driver, even a social worker or a teacher cannot afford Manhattan anymore. The employees that you have here, you told me you have 120. Probably increasingly they're living in the outer boroughs or maybe even beyond, right? This is a threat to the future of New York City. It's a threat to our economy. It's a threat to small businesses. But I'll tell you, the politics of housing are tough because generically you ask people, do you want to build more housing in New York City? Sure, they want to. As soon as you propose a building on a given block in a given neighborhood, then people oppose it. And it's that contradiction, which is slowed housing production. And the result is rents that are $5,000 a month. So I'll use my role as Manhattan Borough president to take this on. This has really been my number one priority.
So this has really been a traditional. This is where the left has slowly but surely come to their senses a little bit, like the Matt Iglesias, like when I was a kid 20 years ago, the left had no interest in building anything anywhere. They felt that you should regulate the price of apartments to be cheaper. But I think they kind of realize now it doesn't work that way. You have to build more apartments. Of course, part of the reason the rents are high is because New York is doing so well, right? You're kind of like Tucker Carlson went to Moscow. He says, the food's so cheap here, right? Yes, because it's poor. And part of the reason it's expensive here is because people can afford it, right? You can't charge more than people can pay.
Yeah.
But yes, when I was a kid, we had a beautiful apartment, a big apartment, very big, big living room, big dining room, big kitchen on 100th Street and Riverside Drive. And it was, I'd say the equivalent of like $2,500 a month rent now. It was $250 a month at that time.
Yeah.
That's unheard. Those apartments go for like $15,000 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unheard of.
Look, when I moved to New York City in 1991, I just found a market rate apartment. And I paid, I think, maybe $500 for a beautiful studio in Brooklyn. And that's how you did it back then. Today, to get an affordable apartment, you'd have to enter a lottery with HPD, and we're averaging more than 500 applicants for every affordable unit. If we can build more housing of every type, it will bring rents down for everybody.
Perhaps, right? Because also what it could just do is bring more people into the city and jack
people
the rent
already
right
want to
back.
be here.
Yeah.
Like this is a lie that you hear on Fox News that no one wants to be in New York City. People want to live here. They want to visit.
No, I mean the people that are now priced out.
Yeah.
So they don't live here because they can't afford it.
Right.
As soon as you build more apartments, they will then
But that
increase demand.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I will stand up for the 1 million rent regulated units that we currently have. We can debate about the economics of that, but if that went away, 1 million people would be in danger of losing their homes. Right? More than 1 million people, 1 million families. So I don't want to do that, but I do also want to build more in Manhattan in every borough, and we can do that.
It should be phased out, in my opinion. Even Paul Krugman has written. There's a column somewhere in the Times. Paul Krugman says something like, "There's few things all economists agree on, but one thing they all agree on is that rent control is a bad idea." This is, of course, the short-term consideration is very important. You can't say, well, tomorrow you're out. But over some reasonable amount of time, if we do believe that markets need to work, then I would favor.
I thought I was coming on for a comedy show.
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
like an economics lesson here. My goodness.
We want to talk about a lot of things in the city, but I want to ask you a question before that. It's kind of on everybody's mind a little bit. Is there any immediate effect that New Yorkers will feel with the change of presidency and Trump and all that? Is that so? What should we expect like that we can feel right away?
I'm worried shitless about this. I got to be honest.
Oh, really?
First of all, we get $8 billion a year from the federal government, just the city agencies alone. $2 billion goes to our schools. And what if they start to put poison pill conditions in there? They say you're not going to get any federal education aid unless you stop teaching about the history of slavery or unless you stop supporting trans kids. We would be faced with the terrible choice that could happen. Already, hospitals are being threatened that they'll lose federal funding if they perform gender-affirming care.
For children.
Yeah, yes, that's true. But things like hormone blockers, et cetera, that can help a kid deal with a very difficult stage in life. And it's an option that is offered with the consent of a medical professional, child, and usually the parents as well. But this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? We get money for free lunches at school. We get money for childcare programs, for rental assistance, and so much more. And we had a near-death experience 2 weeks ago when the Trump administration froze out all federal contracts, including for nonprofits in the city that have federal contracts that have already done the work. They've already paid their salaries and paid their rent, and they were locked out of the portal to get the money that they've already spent. The federal contracts they already have. And this would really be devastating for the nonprofit sector in New York City. The threats are real. And then there's the immigration crackdown, which, we've always deported people who commit violent felonies. That's been the law. In fact, Obama deported a lot more than Trump did in his first term. But what's happening now is way beyond that. We have kids who are not going to school in New York City right now because they're scared of an ICE deportation.
So question regarding the immigration. I know we're sanctuary city. Do we allow ICE to go to prisons? Because I saw an interview when he said if New York City allows to go to prisons to pick up the criminals, we don't have to go to neighborhoods.
They're allowed to now if they have a warrant from a judge.
Okay.
They have not been allowed to go willy-nilly picking through Rikers. I'll remind you that 80% of the people in Rikers are awaiting trial, right? So they have not been convicted and deserve the presumption of innocence. So it's a little bit of a misnomer to say they can't go. They do need a judicial warrant, and that was put in there for due process reasons. But again, the debate is not so much about people who have committed criminal acts, and especially violent criminals. They're casting a dragnet that could impact everybody. They're out in front of schools asking for ID. This happened in Washington Heights. It's scaring people.
Yeah.
And it's going to be bad for New York City. It's going to tear families apart. It's going to hurt our economy. And we need to fight back.
It's very upsetting. First of all, as far as the first thing you're talking about, the tea leaves seem to suggest that Trump and Eric Adams are simpatico. So hopefully that, although it seems corrupt to me, hopefully that will, indicates that Trump is not coming after New York City. But as far as,
but we also need a mayor to push back, right? And having this investigation hanging over his head. They said when they paused the investigation explicitly that they would consider reintroducing it after November, right? So he's got a sword of Damocles hanging over his head.
The judge is getting ready to have...
The judge has to rule, but the Justice Department, even if the judge dismisses the case, the Justice Department, according to what they said, could reintroduce this after the election. So he is really in jeopardy. He's going to have to be kowtowing to the governor, to the president.
I think they're buddy now. But as far as the immigration goes, look, there's so much hypocrisy on this because everybody has friends who are immigrants or were illegal and now legal, and everybody. I mean, just everybody does, and every business owner knows people who came here illegally, and I mean, there's nobody who's not touched by this, and nobody thinks these people should leave.
Nobody?
No.
Donald Trump.
Well, right. No, but even Trump, I'm sure, has all kinds of people in his life. He was a business owner, right? Like he was a construction.
And his family, but he's a hypocrite.
Yeah, right. So but that's what I said. But there's so much hypocrisy in it because like hypocrisy is the vice pays to, the tribute the vice pays to virtue. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, there is a kind of grudging recognition at this point that we do need to control the border. And the only real way they can control the border, and not that I'm an expert, but my common sense tells me they're not going to make a dent in illegal immigration with the number of people they're going to deport. They're going to make a dent in it by telegraphing to some poor woman in Guatemala who's contemplating making the trip here, don't do it. America's not the place you want to try to get into now. And as a matter of fact, when Biden took office, I remember there was interviews in the Washington Post. He was saying, I come because President Biden said, so there was a deluge at the border. So in some way, I believe this is their strategy, is to try to send this message to the world that America's harsh, don't try to come here. And I do understand that. If I'm I understand that thing, and it breaks my heart because this is crazy. You can't have people afraid to go to school, right? You can't. This is no way to live, and it's
You can both say
it's cruel. It's cruel.
You can both say we want order at the border, we want to have better protections at the border, and say that we want to treat people with respect here in America, regardless of their immigration status. Of course, if they commit a crime or violent crime, then there has to be consequences to that. But the vast majority of people come here to work.
But it's unique to America, right? Because I was in Japan last summer, and we loved it there. I mean, we loved it there. And if I said to my wife,
you don't understand what they're saying about you.
Doesn't matter. And if I said to my wife and kids, you know what? Let's just stay. I'll get a job. Let's just stay. I'm quite sure the authorities would have showed up and says, oh no, get the hell out. And I don't think anybody would say, how could they do that? How dare they throw me out?
But Japan has a crisis. Japan's population is shrinking.
No, but you understand my point. You can take any country. The point is like, it's hard.
But this is a strength for America.
Yeah.
Yes, it's unique to America, but even America can't tolerate it at any number, right? I mean, Mayor Adams, and the number turned out to be billions and billions of dollars. This was obviously, where's the money going to come from, right? I was shocked to hear those numbers. Like, what's it, $60-70 billion or something?
No, but more like $6. But it's
$6 billion?
It's significant.
Yeah,
I don't minimize that. This was very challenging for New York City to manage. The flow of arrivals is way down. That started before Trump was elected. It's been down probably for the last 6 months at least. And people are leaving the shelter system faster than they're coming in. So city's actually closing shelters now. So this has been tough to manage. I believe with every fiber of my being that these arrivals are going to be good for New York, as every wave of arrivals has. We have a need for workers, and this has helped to revitalize.
They are good for New York.
Our public schools that were losing population, and now have had an infusion of kids. Again, that doesn't mean we don't need a tighter border, but let's not demonize people who are here because they want to work. And I talk to the migrants all the time, and I'm a Spanish speaker. And the first thing every one of them says is, how can I work? They want to pay rent.
Yeah.
They want to pay taxes, but they need to be able to work. And now over time, many of them have. That could be revoked by Trump, which would just be a tragedy. But look, Trump and his people, they want to even stop legal immigration. They want to stop the H-1B visa program.
Not Trump.
Well, I guess in the end, Musk got to him.
No, that's always been Trump's position. Even in 2015, like I said, there was it was a somewhat well-known interview with Steve Bannon gave to Trump, and they argued about this very issue all the way back in 10 years ago. And Trump was like, no, Steve, we need the most qualified people here. And
well, he hires them, but he's a hypocrite. There's no way they're going to expand H-1B. They're not going to expand.
So what's your plan?
Hold on. He's been completely consistent always. Trump had. Not Bannon, not Steve Miller, whatever. Trump has always been out of step with those guys. Always says, no, I don't see it that way. We should always have, he's never said otherwise. Because his life experience is different than theirs. He's run businesses. He knows. Trump, MAGA, like there's MAGA and there's Trump, but to me, MAGA in waiting, like after Trump leaves the scene, is 10 times worse than Trump. Like Trump is actually holding those guys back. Those guys are anti-Israel. Those guys are soft on anti-Semitism. Those guys are vicious on even illegal immigration. They're vicious on H-1B. They're like, there's so many things that I think Trump is almost like the little Dutch boy on. I mean, I'm sure they're all up in arms about his support for Israel. They don't care about Israel. I know that Hatem doesn't either, but
Yeah, I don't see a point here. But
no, but you know, like Tucker Carlson is holding his tongue as Trump is like, you know, if we want the hostages out tomorrow, and Tucker Carlson couldn't care less about the hostages, you know.
Yeah, I don't think Trump is good for Israel either, but we can have that.
yeah.
Have that
So
Oh, I'd love to hear you.
yeah, let's talk about the problems that we have in Manhattan, how we can solve them, stuff like that. Well, first of all, the toll, the conjunction pricing
Oh, yeah,
zone. You know, one thing is like to coming in, and the other thing is like I feel like I have a lot of my friends live in the Upper East Side and Upper West Side, and people come and park there, and then walk.
Yeah.
So now the residents cannot park or do anything there.
We have a big problem with suburban commuters dumping their cars
Yeah.
on residential streets, especially uptown. It's getting worse after congestion pricing, obviously. You see it around the George Washington Bridge every morning, cars with Jersey plates and PA plates circling around looking for parking. New York City needs to do what many other cities in the world have done. We should have a residential parking permit program where you need to get a permit as a local resident and maybe pay a small fee, generate some revenue for neighborhood upgrades and parks, et cetera, but you prevent this problem of dumping. And actually, we did a video on this with my friend, City Council member Carmen de la Rosa from Washington Heights, who has a bill in the City Council to do this. We're up to 250,000 views on Instagram, so I think it's pretty popular.
Okay,
More so after congestion pricing. It sounds like you're on board, right?
I am.
Okay.
So let's talk about homelessness and mental health and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that I like about, I know Mark for a while as well, is like you're a teacher.
Yes.
And I like the fact that science and math. So you come from a certain community where you raise, you understand all generation. Also, one of the things I like that you bilingual, and you also you have this passion of studying language. And I think it's like
You should learn
communication.
English.
I learn. I speak Hebrew. That's more than enough to to communicate the way I want it. But communication, I think for me is very important because you want to you speak Spanish fluently as well, and just the fact that you want to understand people and have people be able to understand you. I think that's major in New York City. But let's talk about mental health and homelessness in the city because this is crazy.
This is a big problem.
Yeah.
What's your plan?
We got a real problem. We got a crisis.
Yeah.
We really have three crises that are colliding into each other. We have homelessness.
Yeah.
We have a terrible opioid epidemic. Actually, it's really just a fentanyl epidemic. We have one New Yorker dying from overdose every 3 hours in New York City.
I didn't know that.
And that's almost all opioid, fentanyl.
Yeah.
And then we have a broken mental health.
Is it overdose or is it bad fentanyl?
I'm not sure the difference.
Whatever.
But is there good fentanyl, bad fentanyl? It's all bad from my perspective.
Yeah.
But it's
Because he knows where you can get some good.
Call me.
It's incredibly potent.
Yeah.
And it's finding its way into drugs that people don't expect it. It's finding its way into cocaine and
we lost a comedian, Greg Giraldo, from this.
Yeah.
oh, I'm very sorry. From fentanyl.
For opioid,
Yeah.
It's horrible. And then there's the broken mental health system, where I'm sure you've asked yourself what I asked myself: why are there people on the street who appear to have untreated severe mental illness? Where did the system fail? Why are they not in treatment somewhere? And I spent a lot of the past couple of years trying to answer that question. I visited hospital emergency rooms and outpatient clinics, and I tagged along with street outreach teams, including in this neighborhood here. And I found a lot of good people trying very hard and good professionals who can have an impact, but it's all too small relative to the scale of the problem. This society is completely pulled back from that kind of work. I'll give you the most dramatic example. Manhattan has a state psychiatric hospital. It's on Randall's Island. People might not know what it is. It's a very large, kind of institutional-looking campus of 3 huge buildings. You see it from the Triborough Bridge. You see it from the FDR. Well, I got a visit there. Took me a couple months. And I expected a hellish scene, kind of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or something really bad like that.
Willowbrook. Yeah.
Yeah, or like Willowbrook.
I actually been too. Yeah.
Go.
You've been to the Randall's Island facility? Do you care to-
Don't want to get just.
Go ahead.
I want to hear your experience.
No, go ahead.
My experience is I was extremely impressed.
Yeah.
That the professionals were like serious and caring. The facility was good. And I spoke to patients, and I'm not a doctor, but it seemed like they were getting good care. That facility had 4,000 patients at its peak. Today it has 400, right? We have gotten out of the business of long-term inpatient care for people with difficult psychiatric conditions.
Okay, I have a question. So this is, I had someone who had serious mental illness in my family growing up. Those people had been committed in previous.
Yes.
Is this a judicial problem? Is it because it's so much harder to have somebody committed now?
It is both that we have shrunk capacity and that we've put a lot of legal barriers into any kind of involuntary treatment. Even just bringing someone in off the street to an emergency department. We do that about 130 times a week. It's called involuntary removal, but 3/4 are released back to the street, partly because of the high bar that we've set. Now, you got to have due process, right? You're basically taking someone in against their will. But I think that we need to have expanded authority to help someone in need who's not getting treatment.
Well, can I tell you a story?
Yes.
This is a story of Wig. Do you know Wig? So Wig is a
Bartender.
It was a bartender and manager who worked with us for many years. A very unusual guy, one of the most beloved people. Wigberto Garcia was his full name. One of the most beloved people I've ever met in my life. We're very close friends. And then kind of a classic story. He had apparently, we didn't know this, a manic depressive episode in his late teens, and then it goes into kind of remission, and then it reemerged in his 30s. It all took us by surprise. And then he was struggling with this, and he had some sort of episode, and he was home with his mother, who was elderly, and his sister, I think. And he was erratic and threatening in some way, and the parents called 911 because they were scared of how he was behaving. And the police came, and they wanted to take him to jail. And the family said, "Please don't take him to jail. He's mentally ill. He's got manic depressive disease. Please take him to the psychiatric hospital. Please take him to the hospital." He's crying. Please take him to the hospital. The police refused to take him to the hospital. They took him before the judge. The judge issued an order of protection so he couldn't go home. The next night he went to the Queensboro Bridge, I think it was Queensboro Bridge, and jumped off and killed himself.
Oh, my God, that's horrible.
He killed him.
How long ago was that?
This is a couple years ago already. This was, I'd forgotten about it, so you just brought it. This was such a failure. I mean, this is exactly like when you run for office or whatever you do, like you should speak to his family, because it's such a compelling story of what's going wrong. The family saying, "Please take him to a hospital."
Yeah.
And the police, I believe, I don't know, they're like, you know what? We're not going to do that because they're not going to take him. They probably know this is a waste of our time to do that. I don't believe they're just horrible people. They might be, but I don't believe that's what it was. And then so the worst of all worlds, that he was stuck with no place to go, couldn't even go home. I was supposed to see him the day before. I had canceled on him. I didn't call. It's like it's such a, I could go on, but, and then he jumped off a bridge. And he was just having an episode. This is the most gifted. He was Manhattan dart champion. It's just an unbelievable guy. Everybody loved him. Smart. Went to City College. Just whatever. So yeah, and I'm sure there's 1,000 Wigs out there.
So where do you think the
Stories.
system is failing? Like we're taking the people off the street, and then we don't have a place to put them.
I think it's partly that. Like even at Bellevue, there's very few beds for any long-term psychiatric care.
Yeah.
Actually, there's 19.
So what's your plan? What do you think you should?
We need to both expand that capacity.
Yeah.
That does cost money. I think that's a good investment. If
Yeah.
the alternative is that someone lands on Rikers,
Yeah.
we're spending $400,000 a year per detainee at Rikers. So
Yeah.
that's the worst solution. Much cheaper to have an inpatient psychiatric bed, including for your friend Wig.
Wig.
Yeah.
Was his name. But also the rules about when you can involuntarily remove someone need to be tweaked. So the standard is someone a danger to themselves or others?
Yeah.
And recently it's been a pretty high bar.
Yeah.
Like you'd kind of either have to sort of commit an act of violence or maybe say you're going to hurt yourself. And I want to give credit to Governor Holker, who proposed something to expand that to say if you're not caring for your medical or food or clothing needs, and you're out in the street in February and you have no shoes and you have an untreated wound,
We can infer it.
that you're a
Yes.
danger to yourself.
And you can
What you're saying, and I mean, we had Anthony Weiner on, and I said to him that New York is like a common sense desert, and what you're describing, that we should be able to infer a mental condition by the fact that you're out in the street in February with no shoes on and not trying to get shoes, rather than having to say certain technical things. Otherwise, we have to pretend, no, he might be perfectly sane. I'm 100% with you. And this kind of use of common sense throughout almost every issue that ails us as a city is really what we need.
So I think we have a few minutes left. If you want to tell us about, your plan and your top, say 3 or 4 things that you want to do in your.
I'm sure that the word comptroller has never been said on a
a
comedy podcast ever.
What does a controller do?
It's probably the least funny thing you can talk about. It is the most underappreciated job probably in American government.
Okay.
It's the second most powerful job in the city after the mayor, and has a huge role first in managing the pension funds for all our public sector workers. The pension fund is massive. It's $280 billion approximately.
Okay.
That's a big piece of the American economy. That gives us power as New Yorkers to say we're shareholders in every company in America. So we want to demand that you do the right thing by the environment or supporting trans people, et cetera. This also has subpoena and audit power over every arm of government to try and solve some of the problems we've been talking about, to try and make sure that these agencies modernize and actually deliver for New Yorkers. There are fax machines still in use in many parts of New York City government. We have not caught up anywhere near to 2025.
So you will have a power to actually change things.
You can influence it through audit and investigations and oversight. The mayor is running these agencies, but a good comptroller can push back and can force solutions onto the table. And I will do that. If you want to get affordable housing, we've talked about affordable housing here. You want to get affordable housing built in New York City, and you've got the property and the developer and even the financing, which is hard. You got to add 18 months to the calendar just to get the paperwork approved at the housing department. This is insane. There are people in homeless shelters for another 18 months because we were waiting for the loan documents to get approved. Maybe that could be automated in some way or modernized and be done in 18 days instead of 18 months. We can, look, you've tried to build things. Anytime you have to hire an expediter to get a permit approved, that's a manifest failure of the system, right? So I think that by modernizing and using some technology, we can streamline this, and I'll certainly fight for this. Also, by the way, our pension money, some of that could be invested to finance affordable housing that wouldn't otherwise be built, right? For workers too, it could be workforce housing. So this is a very important office. And for me, it would be a dream. It's something I've been preparing for my entire life. I started as a young physics major teaching math and science in the Bronx, bilingual. I started a community development financial institution in Washington Heights, a credit union, kind of like a nonprofit bank that helps low-income families, immigrant families get access to credit to buy a home computer, start a small business, get a mortgage, classes on financial literacy. The credit union is still going strong. It's called Neighborhood Trust. Nice. It's made almost $100 million.
You raised a lot of money for that, I know.
Yeah, back in the day. It's made almost $100 million in loans. And this is changing people's lives. So I know what it is to read a financial statement. This has really been my life's work. And it would be a dream to win as the next New York City comptroller. Unfortunately, Noam lives in Westchester County, so you can't vote for me. But Adam and many of your listeners, I hope you will.
And a lot of the comics too. Everybody.
Yes,
no,
indeed.
I don't. Well, no.
I can swing a lot of votes. A lot of people will listen to me.
Good.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, we don't just say that, but I think you're a good person, and like whenever there's a couple of incidents that happened the last couple of years that I wasn't even involved, like I said, in that school, and I was there and I saw you there. You just showed up and helped, and you're passionate about it. So I'm definitely going for you. There's one thing that I don't like about you, but other than that, everything else is okay.
Nobody's perfect.
No, but
Mashallah.
but everything is okay, and I think when is the election?
June 24th is the primary. It's all about the primary.
Okay.
Because New York is a one-party town.
Yeah, we got 4 months to go. So we need everybody to get out. This is a big election year. Everything's up.
Yeah.
Mayor down to city council, everything in between.
So people want to help or check it out more.
They can go to votemarklevine.com. We need all the help we can get. We're looking for volunteers.
Do you want to endorse a candidate for mayor?
I definitely do not.
Okay.
And it would be a bad look because you want a comptroller who's independent of the mayor. You don't want a comptroller who's buddy-buddy with the mayor, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm staying out of that.
Fine.
Would you like to endorse, either of you two, like to endorse a candidate for mayor?
I want to endorse you for controller.
Oh, yeah, that will take.
I would vote for. I'm not a knowledgeable, actually, even though I'm too busy on Eric Adams. I don't like De Blasio got under my skin on a daily basis. Eric Adams, I don't notice him that much.
Yeah.
The city's not doing.
Isn't there a comedian running for mayor? What's her name?
No, but
Paperboy Prince? No.
No, what's her name?
Oh no, she's not. This woman from Sex and the City, isn't she running? Oh no,
no, from Guys with
Corinne Fisher.
Yeah.
yeah. That's not a serious candidate.
Yeah.
I would vote for Andrew Cuomo. I'll vote for any moderate. The city desperately needs moderates. We had very good moderate mayors in this city. I'm including Giuliani in that, even though Giuliani became something much different.
Yeah, before 2000.
I call him, Dr. Jekyll, not Mr. Hyde. But, and certainly Mayor Bloomberg, who, of course, everybody will have an issue with some politician. But we had good, moderate, competent leadership at City Hall for many, many years. And the city thrived because of it.
Yeah.
And I think election is very important now, as we see. So we have to put the right people at the right places. That's why I hope you get there, and do some damage.
And by the way, it's just, I know if you have to go, but to kind of let you off the hook also, I was listening to this podcast by some guy named Caruso on Sam Harris's podcast, and they were going over what went on in Los Angeles over the last 15 years vis-a-vis this known problem that they had and risk of the fires. And it actually matters. Like, you do need to have proactive grown-ups in charge, because it was clear. Everybody's listening to Sam Harris' recent podcast. It's so, not that they would have had zero fire in Los Angeles, I don't know, but it did not have to be. It was all predictable, known. It's just they chose not to take care of it. Yeah. And if they had Mayor Bloomberg, it's just very unlikely to. They had fire hydrants that were going before the fire. These fire hydrants were not going on. They decided to do service on things and close the reservoir during the peak season of fires. Like, just crazy, incompetent decisions.
Yeah.
And you think it doesn't matter. You think it doesn't matter until it matters, right?
Well, I think you have to be, like you said, proactive, and also you have to be New Yorker or from LA. Like, you have to be from the city and have that passion. If that's a job that you've dreamt of all your life, And with Trump, love him or hate him, hate him in my case, but what he's doing in the first couple of weeks, work-wise, you see that he's very passionate. He's doing, and I think all politicians
it's a lot of chaos, and cruelty, and
this pardoning of these January 6th.
Yeah,
disgraceful
and more. But I'm saying, like, it's good to have politicians working hard, regardless. Not him, obviously.
I promise I will always work hard.
Yeah, we'll give you a final word if you want to say anything before we go.
Look, Democrats need to show right now we can govern. This is a time for solutions. We lost Democratic voters in New York City to Trump because they feel that we're not producing results.
Yes.
So we have got to deliver. We need competent leadership in New York City to show the rest of the country that Democrats can run the largest city in the country. And we need a strong comptroller, and that's why I'm running, to fulfill that vision.
Very good.
Thank you.
I promise I'll always be good to comedians.
I'll have the link in the description of this episode, so you can go to the website and check out.
I hope the government will recognize that nightlife and the attendant tourism.
You guys are a huge economic boon for New York City. Huge.
Are part and parcel of what New York City is.
Huge.
People come to the city to watch comedy, to New York City.
Of course. And they stay in a hotel, and they get a meal, and they go to a bar, and they go shopping, and maybe they see a show while they're here too.
Absolutely.
You guys are a cultural magnet. There are thousands and thousands of jobs directly, and also producing tax revenue. And sorry, you can't.
Especially since you got rid of those cash.
Oh, sorry about that.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for being here, and
Thank you,
know
guys.
we'll do everything we can, and obviously I'm voting for you, Noam as well, right?
Oh,
Thank you, Hatem. Thank
Yeah.
you, Noam.
Maybe I can vote if I can switch my address like
Don't-
like,
and-
like,
and
like
if-
politicians do when they want to run
Don't
for
do anything
Senate.
illegal.
And if you
on my
get a
behalf.
Muslim and a Jew to vote for you at the same time, like this is a big
I
deal.
have,
Oh
an
my
address. I have an
gosh.
address here.
Yeah,
We're making peace in New York right
yeah.
now. I
No,
love
no
it.
one was able to get us together, but you did. So congrats.
Thank you both.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, you got my vote.